As 2023 nears its close, those in the role-playing game community are forced to confront a hard truth. Wizards of the Coast has won, Hasbro has won, and the social justice warrior invasion has won. The normal fag invasion of Dungeons and Dragons is near total, and such a population is easily subverted and controlled. As such, it is easy for these cultural architects to install false pillars of stricture, such as Session Zero, Rule of Cool, and other derivative garbage that insidiously reinforces a particular style of play that is cohesive with the goals of the coastal homos who have owned and controlled the game for over 20 years now. This explains why the newest D&D modules are about college dating drama, food truck tasting, and other cosmopolitan shit that results from the limited imagination of urban creative types who really don't create much of anything. That is why heroic adventures of grand scope are being replaced with minor errands and diversions, and of course, this is intentional. The goal of this trash is to discourage the bold and masculine exploits of those like Conan and Fafford, to popularize concepts such as the Adventuring Guild so as to regulate them and tame them, to discourage the intrepid maverick spirit, which is what drives D&D adventurers of old. It's another step in preparing you for the Agenda 2030 future, one where excitement does not mean forging your own path, conquering land, claiming treasure, saving your people. It's where it means you select a quote-unquote job from the corkboard and complete it, just like a video game or your job at Amazon Incorporated. Now, obviously, this mundanity should be rejected by the D&D community, but it isn't, because it has been infiltrated by pudgy low-testosterone excuses for men who drive Honda Civics and work in shipping and receiving for $35,000 a year, who will use all their disposable income to consume as much product as possible. These men will back 5 Kickstarters a month and unironically discuss the pronouns of Magic the Gathering planeswalkers without a hint of irony, because they are corporate slaves with whiny voices who have lard tub girlfriends who they let control their lives because they want a second mommy. And they have won, because you will keep on buying their slop. You will buy the college dating module, and you will buy the Indian curry shopping adventure, and you will buy the transgender grooming adventure, and you will buy the Black Lives Matter adventure. You will just keep on buying that garbage and signing up for D&D Beyond. The naive attitude of welcoming new players is what caused this. Redditor D&D players allowed their fine intention to get mind-jacked into loading up the player base with low-effort morons whose first look at the game was Stranger Things. So they let the hobby be flooded with terrible players who have no concept of the culture. And the sad part is that they have been fed the corporate line that D&D will die out if it doesn't have a constant influx of new players, like the lie the globalists tell you that your nation will die without accepting 5 million uneducated refugees every year. The resemblance between the policy proposals is uncanny yet fitting, but the players of D&D designed their own demise. Better than most of the dungeons in the new D&D edition modules are designed, they expertly signal-boosted dozens of stories that made D&D appear to be a joke, that pushed tropes like seductive bard or moron barbarian. Then they brought in hordes of normal fags. You don't need the rest explained to you. Critical Role poisoned D&D even deeper and flooded it even more thoroughly with low-effort, low-imagination players. These worthless hillocks have made D&D almost completely untenable as a community from which to handpick players. The process now is like trying to hire a CEO in a San Francisco homeless encampment. There are so many low-lifes running around the 5e scene that even as a dungeon master, it seems like it isn't worth the effort to recruit anyone at all. So I sure hope everyone out there is playing with the same group of friends since middle school. But of course, most people aren't. Most people struggle to find a game or group and have bounced between several. This is because the modern methods of organizing and starting a D&D game are fundamentally flawed and thus prone to decay and failure. This will be discussed in a later video in greater depth and detail. But the point is that the argument of "I will simply hide in my basement with the same 4 friends for the next 40 years" is invalid. You do need to care that Hasbro and Critical Role have, in tandem with the social justice warrior menace, completely shifted tabletop culture, because that is your pool of people to recruit from. When John has kids and doesn't have time to play anymore, or when Chris moves to another country, you will need to find a new player. And if your options are diluted by hordes of Critical Role zombies, or worse, the player who would have been a good choice for your group has been brainwashed by SJW propaganda, then you won't be happy. But it won't matter, because these warnings have been given and ignored. Nothing will change. Wizards of the Coast will sell $1,000 magic cards, cancel the open gaming license, then cuck out, send armed thugs to people's houses, and create dozens of political cringe-fest nightmares that one can only assume are PR stunts. And people will still buy that garbage. People on Reddit will seethe and cry and complain, and as soon as the next D&D supplement comes out, they will soy-face like that fat little bitch watching the Star Wars Episode 9 trailer. A book about giants? Yes, I must buy this immediately. A book about the deck of many things? I must buy it, and all is well again in the world. It is almost like watching the life cycle of mice, reproducing in a field to be caught by hawks and rent asunder and fed on, and yet they continue to have more babies to feed the meat grinder of predatory consumption by greater powers. Except that, in the case of the mice, one can almost feel pity for them, as they do not know any better and act purely on instinct. The modern D&D player/consumer also does, but it is also possessed of human intellect, if of the barest sort, and the responsibility that comes with it. So that is how it ends, with D&D becoming an over-marketed pile of meaningless, soulless sludge. If you want a vision of the future, imagine a pudgy loser buying a $70 Gay Pride Tiamat miniature and curry tasting contest adventure rulebook and D&D branded soy cookbook forever. That is the future you chose.